Thank you, Acting Speaker. And I rise today to contribute to the Circular Economy Waste Reduction and Recycling Act 2021. And firstly, I want to thank the Minister and her staff for this important piece of reform, and it's always a pleasure to follow the member for Box Hill and hear his contribution, in particular in regard to recycling and the reduction of waste. And I know in our circumstances at home, in the change to the recycling bins, we certainly have reduced what we throw out to waste nowadays, which is fantastic. The Circular Economy Waste Reduction and Recycling Act 2021 formed a central part of the Andrews Labor government's once-in-a-generation reform of Victoria's waste and recycling system, and to make it even more effective, accountable and consistent with community expectations. This bill delivers additional reforms to the Circular Economy Act as well as the Sustainability Victoria Act 2005 and of course the Environment Protection Act 2017 to support our state's transition to a circular economy. Of course, this Andrews Labor government has invested an unprecedented amount of $515 million to deliver this transition, and this will support the creation of more than 3,900 jobs, deliver on our climate change targets and ensure Victoria have a recycling system that we can rely upon. That's what this government does. It invests in jobs and it invests in our environment and certainly invests in our climate. It's always important to realise that as we transition to a new paradigm, we need to take people with us, and we need to create good jobs and invest in people as much as we invest in infrastructure and in policies. And this bill reminds me of the excellent work of Outlook at the Melton Recycling Facility, and I was delighted to represent the Minister when the Andrews Labor government contributed $490,000 to upgrading this innovative recycling facility through the $26.1 million Resource Recovery and Infrastructure Fund and the $15 million e-waste infrastructure support program. Of course, the upgrades have boosted the processing capacity of the facility by 25%, and that's a further 7,250 tonnes of waste being kept out of landfill and created 2 new jobs at that time. So in total, Melton Recycling Facility has the capacity to divert more than 45,000 tonnes of waste from landfill each year. That's amazing, and that's just in the area of Melton alone. The jobs created at Melton meant that more locals are working where they live or close to where they live, either at this facility or in the shop that sells goods that can get a renewed lease of life rather than ending up as a landfill. So what they've set up at this facility is a shop that sells off that recycling, either clothing or equipment or toys, bikes, things like that. So it's a fantastic innovation. There's been some exciting things happening in Melton, like when I represented the Minister for Water at Greater Western Water Melton Treatment Plant. I was there to celebrate the waste transformation innovation biosolids to biochar technology. It was quite amazing to see what was happening here at this Greater Western Water Treatment Plant. This innovative technology developed by RMIT University makes biosolids management more environmentally sustainable and cost effective, also helping to reduce carbon emissions for both the water and agriculture industries. And by creating a safer product with a steady supply stream, it also provides our farmers and the wider agriculture industry with a product which is completely natural and can improve soil health and fertility. It's programs like this all across the Andrews Labor government's portfolios that show we take our environment and climate seriously, whether it be energy capturing at Greater Western Water or the solar arrays, or the energy efficient upgrades in Melton South at Heather Westerway's home, which was one of the Healthier Homes projects, or the commitment that the new Melton Hospital will be fully electric, and this government gets on and delivers climate, environmental action whilst creating jobs. The bill introduces a thermal waste to energy scheme, which caps the processing of certain types of waste at facilities that process the waste using thermal waste to energy processes. It provides for the head of Recycling Victoria to licence thermal waste to energy facilities in Victoria. and Recycling Victoria cannot issue licences that collectively exceed an annual cap on permitted waste expressed as 1 million tonnes per financial year. The bill also enables the head of Recycling Victoria to deliver a Victorian recycling infrastructure plan, consolidating the existing multi-plan framework into a single plan with 30-year horizon to inform long-term strategic planning and support decision-making. This bill also establishes a risk, consequence, contingency framework to ensure risks and consequences are identified and managed, and contingency plans are implemented to minimise impacts of any serious disruptions to waste, recycling and resource recovery service delivery. The bill also requires the head of Recycling Victoria to prepare an annual market report and provides a function to prepare market strategies. It provides for a new compliance tool on application by Recycling Victoria, where courts may make monetary benefit orders to get the illegal profits made from non-compliance with the waste and recycling laws. This bill makes amendments to an Environment Protection Act 2017 to improve its efficacy, including amendments to further equip the EPA and local government with powers to effectively undertake their regulatory functions under the Environment Protection Act 2017, such as enabling the EPA and councils to appoint third parties as authorised officers, and amendments to mitigate the risk of liquidators avoiding clean-up costs. Recycling Victoria sets a new economy, sets for 4 ambitious targets for improving our state's recycling system, and those are to divert 80% of waste from landfill by 2030, with an interim target of 72% by 2025. And it's to cut total waste generation by 15% per capita by 2025. It's also to halve the volume of organic material going to landfill between 2020 and 2030. And finally, ensuring every Victorian has access to food and garden organic waste recycling services or local composting by 2030. Of course, recycling is one of the primary ways most Victorians engage with sustainability policy. Everyone puts things in the bin, and when people put things in the recycling bin, they want to do so with the confidence that those materials will actually be reused or repurposed. And we know that an industry as large as the waste and recycling industry requires strong regulation. So up until 1 July of this year, there had not been one central body responsible for this regulation, and our government changed that by creating Recycling Victoria, a body responsible for overseeing and providing strategic leadership for the sector. And this bill includes important reforms that will allow Recycling Victoria to provide that leadership and guidance. The reforms in this bill build upon the important reforms this government has already achieved, including our reforms to curbside waste collection. And by 2030, all across Victoria, no matter where you live, every household will have access to 4 separate waste stream services: food and organics, glass, commingled recycling and residual waste. And for most households, this will come in the form of 4 bins. I should say that before I finish, that a lot of our major constructions are done with recycled material, such as the M80 Ring Road. And in fact, some of the world's first noise walls along the Mordialloc Freeway were made of 75% recycled plastic. And it would be great if the Melton City Council investigated this to reduce the cost of a sound wall they promised constituents at the Silverdale estate. They had committed $2 million, put out a tender, and now have taken the money away, leaving residents frustrated and angry that they don't have their sound wall. Maybe they could do some research into the Mordialloc Freeway and try to reduce the costs and deliver on the promises of delivering their sound wall for those residents. So, Acting Speaker, this bill is another example of the Andrews Labor government's delivering for our environment, our climate, alongside of delivering jobs and improving our economy. Obviously, reusing materials can go into some constructions of roads and other great infrastructure. I support this legislation. I once again congratulate the Minister and her staff, and I commend the bill to the House.